Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for coming to spend part of your Friday, September 29th with me, or perhaps it's Saturday in your part of the world. We're going to give this the old college try today because the weather here is insane right now. There's a lot of storms and thunder and rain. And I looked at the little weather map and it looks like the worst has passed over my house. But, being a weather person is really the only job that you can screw up every day and not get fired. So it remains to be seen whether the weather is going to affect this or not. If my internet does cut out because I'm hooked up to the Ethernet and I do go dark for a second, just wait a couple minutes because I'll probably be back. Hello to all of my friends in the chat. All right, so this is interesting news. This is very interesting news, and the timing of this is very interesting as well. Go Buffs. Yes, Laughing Lori, go Buffs. GYPSY Rose Blanchard, it has just been announced, is being released on parole in December from a Missouri. I think it's Missouri, right? Is that the right way to pronounce it? I don't want to get lambasted for pronouncing Missouri wrong, in a Missouri prison. She's been in there for 8.5 years. And for those of you who are familiar with the GYPSY Rose Blanchard case, I'm going to ask you to put an F for familiar in the chat. If you are unfamiliar with this case, never heard of it before, put a U in the chat for unfamiliar. And this right now is for live viewers only. I love my replay viewers, but I just want to get a chance of to see how much the live viewers know about this case. All right, you guys are familiar with this case. What is so interesting about the timing of this is that we have also been following very closely the Maya Kowalski case out of Florida against Johns Hopkins Children's Medical Center. And the allegations in the Take Care of Maya case, which was the subject of a Netflix documentary, involve alleged false allegations of Munchausen by proxy against Maya's mom, which led to Maya's mom taking her own life because she thought it was her only way to get her daughter out of state custody, because her daughter had been taken into state custody because of it's pronounced Missouri. I don't know. I say Missouri too, but then I say Missouri. But then when I watched, Ozark, do the people who live in Missouri call it Missouri? Missouri. That's the state where she is currently incarcerated and being released on parole. However you want to pronounce it. So in the GYPSY Rose Blanchard case, this case was also made the subject of a limited series on Hulu called The Act, which I'm not going to really reference because people say a lot of it was inaccurate. So we really just want to stick to the facts of what happened in the GYPSY Rose Blanchard case. And it seems like a lot of you are familiar with the case. But what I'd like to do is do a little background on the case, tell you about it, tell you what happened, tell you about the financial fraud allegations that were made against the family. And then also, I want to go back and look at GYPSY Rose's testimony during the trial, because it's very interesting to see some clips of her as a child and then to see her on the stand when she testified at her co-defendant's murder trial. So first, let's have a little story time. GYPSY Rose Blanchard was born in July of 1991. Her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, who was eventually accused of the MBP, we're going to call it for purposes of this live stream, because quite honestly, I've been getting demonetized on YouTube for 2 of the past streams that I've done. One was on Rex Heuermann, which I have no idea why that would be demonetized. And the other one was on the second of the 3 Maya trial videos that I did, which I couldn't understand. So I'm going to ask you to refrain from putting any potential words in your live chat and also in the comments that YouTube may find offensive. I don't know. If I could figure out the algorithm on this thing, I'd be a bazillionaire. I can't. I don't know why they're striking things. We're just talking about a trial here. So, I don't know. No, they don't really tell you what. They don't really tell you and you know what happens if they strike you, demonetize you, and it's not for copyright stuff, it's for subject matter. They won't push your video out. So they essentially shadow ban your video. So the only people that will even see that your video is out are your subscribers, which is kind of like weird. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I can say MVP. I can say the initials, but even if I say the word, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but if I say that A word, it's a problem, especially in the first 5 minutes of the stream. I don't know. Very strange. All right. Well, in any event, no, they don't really give me a reason. They just strike it and then I appeal it. And then sometimes they take it away and sometimes they don't. It doesn't really make a difference to me. But if we can just refrain, yeah, it's called factitious disorder. You are correct. Factitious disorder. Who knows if they don't like that word either? Who knows? So GYPSY Rose Blanchard, as I said, was born in July of 1991. To her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, who was married for a short time to a guy named Rod. And by the time GYPSY was 3 months old, her mother became convinced that she had sleep apnea. And this is when this whole pattern of factitious disorder, although I'm not sure if factitious disorder applies to by proxy, because this is actually by proxy. So this is a case of Dee Dee intentionally making her daughter sick and undergo all of these surgeries and faking all of these illnesses and symptoms for her own gain, for Dee Dee's own gain and the financial gain of the family. But be that as it may, we're going to say MVP. Okay. Just for now. So GYPSY Rose is born. By the time she's 3 months old, her mother, Dee Dee, is convinced that she's got sleep apnea. She's taking her to the doctor constantly. She's taking her to the hospital constantly. And even though nobody could find any evidence of sleep apnea, Dee Dee doesn't give up. Now, interesting to note, after this whole story came out, the family of Dee Dee came out and said that when Dee Dee lived with her father and stepmother, it was suspected that Dee Dee tried to poison her stepmother. Dee Dee was the only one doing any of the cooking. They're claiming that she may have put something like Roundup, the weed killer, in her food. She got very, very ill. And then when Dee Dee moved out, all of a sudden she got better. Interesting. And then it had also been suspected after this story came out that Dee Dee may have been responsible for starving her own mother, her biological mother, and unaliving her. So this woman, Dee Dee Blanchard, may or may not have had a very, very long history of mental illness, mental disorders, causing injury to others before she started subjecting her own daughter to this. Really insane. So Dee Dee and Rod eventually divorce. And at the time that GYPSY is about 7 or 8 years old, she's involved in a minor accident. She has a scrape on her knee. And from that point forward, her mother put her in a wheelchair and told everybody that she needed a wheelchair. But it didn't stop there. She eventually would go on to swindle Make-A-Wish Foundation, Habitat for Humanity, Special Olympics, in order to gain things for the family, public assistance. So at first, they lived in Louisiana, and Dee Dee began homeschooling Gypsy at around kindergarten, took her out of school, or maybe she even never put her in school. Red flag number one. During the time that they lived in Louisiana, they lived in public housing. They paid their bills with child support that Rod paid, and the public assistance that Dee Dee would get because of GYPSY Rose's disabilities. She took her to Tulane Medical Center all the time and the Children's Hospital in New Orleans, and she kept claiming that Gypsy had all kinds of illnesses, including hearing and vision problems. She insisted that Gypsy had muscular dystrophy, even though the doctors couldn't find any evidence of muscular dystrophy. She also told the doctors that Gypsy had seizures and epilepsy, and got the doctors somehow to prescribe her these anti-seizure medications. And really strangely, during this time, several surgeries were performed on Gypsy. So after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, their apartment was devastated, as were the homes of many others who lived in the area. And they went to a shelter in Covington, which I believe it's in Georgia, but I'm not sure. And it was a special shelter that had been set up for families who had children or individuals with special needs. So Dee Dee told everyone that all of their documents were destroyed during the hurricane, and she did not have Gypsy's birth certificate or any of her medical records. And one of the doctors that they met in this shelter suggested that perhaps they should move to the Ozarks because it may be better for her health. And that is in Missouri or Missouri, depending on how you pronounce it. And the next month, they were airlifted to Missouri. That's in 2005. So by this time, Dee Dee starts to realize that she can completely start taking advantage of these illnesses that her daughter doesn't even really have for financial gain. She even she even has Gypsy Rose. She has them place a feeding tube in her. They give her a feeding tube. She makes her stay in the wheelchair. She tells people she can't walk. Just horrifying things. She convinces everybody somehow that Gypsy is completely disabled. In 2008, Habitat for Humanity built them a home with a wheelchair ramp and a hot tub. And they receive all kinds of local media attention, and the neighborhood rallies behind them, and they often pitch in to help them. She has all sorts of financial fundraisers, and people are just raising money, and they really, really want to help this family. In fact, she even told everyone that Gypsy had leukemia, and she would shave her head on a regular basis, telling Gypsy that, well, you know, the chemotherapy and all this stuff that you're going to have is just going to make your hair fall out anyway. So let's just keep your head shaved. This is just, it's really insanity when you do a deep dive. And I remember being completely so horrified by this trial and these allegations and this whole story that came out about what this mother did to her daughter. She lied about her age, and Gypsy thought she was much younger than she actually was. And she was very small. She was 5 feet tall. Her muscles had atrophied because she had been confined to a wheelchair since the age of 7 or 8. She had a very high-pitched voice. So people thought she was a lot younger than she was as well. She would often take advantage of stays at the Ronald McDonald House during medical appointments that we later found out were not even necessary. They would get free trips to Disney World, backstage passes to see Miranda Lambert in concert, and she was frequently photographed with Miranda Lambert, actually. And that was all Make-A-Wish Foundation stuff that they were granted. And her father didn't really have much of a part in her life aside from sending his child support checks. He really never saw her, and he occasionally talked to her on the phone. And in fact, during one call on her 18th birthday, he says that Dee Dee said to him, don't mention to her how old she is today because she thinks she's 14. So apparently he tried to see her a bunch of times and he couldn't. And I guess he kind of gave up. Dee Dee was giving Gypsy so many medications that were unnecessary for her that her teeth actually started falling out of her head. She had a full set of dentures, no teeth, no hair because her mother was shaving it off. She had hearing aids. She wore very thick glasses. And Dee Dee was medicating her with all kinds of medications that were not necessary that led to many side effects that were also causing Gypsy to be ill. So with all of this physical and mental, as we're going to call it for purposes of this stream, Gypsy wasn't really allowed to have any contact with the outside world. In fact, during one of these medical interventions by Dee Dee, there was a doctor who actually extracted all of Gypsy's salivary glands to control her drooling. But the drooling was caused because Dee Dee was constantly putting Oragel or some other substance on her gums that would burn and make her drool. And the anti-seizure medications also contributed to her drooling. She also had tubes put in her ears for all of these alleged ear infections that she didn't really have. So Gypsy at some point gets access to a computer and she signs up for a dating, like an internet dating site called christiandatingforfree.com. And in October of 2012, she meets a boy on this Christian dating site. And his name is Nicholas GODEJOHN. And he is on the autism spectrum. And they begin this online relationship in secret. And it goes on for years. And they never meet until one day in March of 2015, Gypsy convinces Nicholas to come from where he lives in Wisconsin to meet her. And I think they go to something like a Cinderella movie. And she's all decked out in like a Cinderella dress. And they finally meet in person. And they're in love. And they have this fantasy that they're going to get married. And eventually, according to Gypsy Rose's own testimony, she convinces Nicholas, because by now, Gypsy Rose is starting to figure out that she's not really sick. And in fact, she testifies, and we're going to see her testify, that she knew since the age of 8 that she didn't need a wheelchair because she could walk when people weren't around. She didn't realize that she didn't have all of these other disorders that her mother claimed she had, like leukemia and muscular dystrophy, and that she didn't need all these medications, and that her teeth rotted out of her head because her mother caused them to. But she did know that she didn't need a wheelchair, and she did know that she didn't want to be under her control anymore. So she convinces Nicholas to come to visit her in March of 2015. And then she convinces him to come and get her, and they're going to run away together. But the only way that they can do that is to unalive her mother. So in June of 2015, Dee Dee's body is found in her home with 17 stab wounds, and GYPSY Rose is missing. And the neighbors are freaking out because they think GYPSY Rose is disabled and maybe someone kidnapped her. But her wheelchair is still in the house and all her medications are still in the house, and they escaped to Wisconsin. Eventually, we'll watch some of the testimony. Detectives discover that GYPSY Rose and Nicholas concocted this plan. And in July of 2016, GYPSY Rose pled guilty to second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison. In exchange for her testimony against her then boyfriend, Nicholas GODEJOHN, who went to trial on December 18th on charges of first-degree murder. December of 2018. And he was quickly found guilty by a jury of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without parole, where he still sits. He was sentenced in February of 2019. So today, or last night, actually, someone pointed out to me, it still hasn't broken, by the way, in the New York Post. So I consider it breaking news until I see it in the New York Post. Somebody said, this isn't breaking news. We heard about this yesterday. I live near Springfield. I said, well, we still haven't heard of it. It's still coming out. She was sentenced to 10 years. She was let out after 8.5. She's done 8.5 years. And after 85% of your sentence, you are eligible for parole in that state. And there are a lot of people who feel that had she gone to trial, she may have been acquitted based on the severe abuse that she suffered at the hands of her own mother. So let me know what you think. But in the meantime, I'm going to play a clip from the local news that from June of 2015, because this is interesting. This is when this was first breaking. They're going to talk about possible financial schemes and the things that they suspected was going on with this family. Live viewers only, let me know that you can hear it.
Very much. The story behind a couple arrested in Big Bend, this week after authorities say they murdered a woman in Missouri. The story is growing increasingly bizarre.
It turns out GYPSY Blanchard and her mother were in the news before.
And asked him to stab her mother to death so that they could be together.
As the charges against her are detailed, you can hear her sobs.
Stole money from her deceased mother's safe and fled the state of Missouri.
And when she does speak in Waukesha County Court, she sounds like a child.
2103 West Volunteer Way.
But GYPSY Blanchard is an adult. Although authorities aren't sure exactly how old she is, it's likely somewhere between 19 and 23.
I remember my mom had gave me this little glass house, and she said, one day this will be real. And now it finally is.
That's GYPSY 7 years ago, clutching her mother Dee Dee's hand, the woman she's now accused of asking her boyfriend, Nicholas GODEJOHN, to stab to death.
It's so easy to live here, and it's so peaceful.
The two were interviewed after Habitat for Humanity built them a handicapped accessible home because of GYPSY's disabilities. They said she was confined to a wheelchair.
We have an awesome bathtub. It's a jacuzzi tub meant for my muscles. And we have a wonderful ramp.
And I want to start off with saying things are not always as they appear.
Authorities say the two were lying. You can see GYPSY for yourself walking into court. Now, along with the investigation into Dee Dee's murder, authorities are also looking into what appears to be a financial scheme.
This is a tragic tragic event surrounded by mystery and public deception.
Alleging Gypsy and her mother lied about Gypsy's health to get money and attention.
It just proves that happy endings are not just in fairy tales, they're real and true in real life also.
According to court documents, both Gypsy and her boyfriend say he stabbed Dee Dee after Gypsy asked him to. Investigators say he then mailed the knife to his Wisconsin home so he would not get caught.
I did see some additional footage. I don't have it up right now of that sheriff, and I thought he was really harsh on Gypsy. I mean, this girl was so brainwashed that she had no idea what was going on. I don't think that any of these financial schemes were her idea at all. So I was a little surprised by that. Oh, thank you, Teresa, for the super sticker. I appreciate you so much. Louise, she didn't know what normal was, so I don't think she should have served this long. She should have gotten to go get help and probation. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of strong feelings on this. Apparently I read that she was going to school while she was in prison, and she had a job of some sort. And so she was trying to, you know, make something of her time in there. I've heard that she may write a book. She may have Callie Dime. She may have had an extreme case of Stockholm syndrome. I mean, you saw the footage of her when she was 14. When she pled guilty, she was 24 years old. But nobody really knew how old she was. And if you look at that footage of her, you know, she could have been 18, 19 years old. She looks to me like she's 7, 8, 9. Yes. I agree with the therapy for what she endured and for over a decade and probation. Over a decade, it was even more than that. I mean, she had been undergoing these unnecessary medical procedures and medications and being forced to be in a wheelchair and surgery since she was 3 months old. By the time she pled guilty, she was 24. 24 years of this abuse by her own mother. How long ago is this? The unaliving, as such, took place in June of 2015. She pled guilty in July of 2016. But you look at that footage and it looks vintage, right? If she wasn't taken, Masha says, if she wasn't taken care of properly, she might have been set back in mental age. Hope that isn't rude. No, I don't think that's rude at all. I think you're 100% correct. I think you're 100% correct. She may have been, her growth may have been stilted. Obviously her social skills were stilted, her intelligence. Amy in Boston, who are these doctors performing these operations and removing her teeth? I have so many questions. Well, I don't even think they removed her teeth. I think her teeth just fell out. And then her mother took her to get a full set of dentures. And they were on all kinds of public assistance because of these fake disorders that she had. But yeah, I mean, who's performing surgeries on somebody that doesn't really need them? It's insane. I'm going to play the trial testimony. It's about 29 minutes long, but I think this is going to give us some real insight about Gypsy Rose's state of mind, about the things that she went through. This was her testimony during the trial of her boyfriend, Nicholas GODEJOHN, that took place in December of 2018. And you're going to hear from her own mouth what her mother did to her. So let's take a listen to this. If you haven't seen it, it's riveting stuff. I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I remember really being kind of shocked by it. This is day 3 of the trial, but this is the first time that Gypsy Rose gets on the stand.
Please be seated. All right, are we ready for your witnesses?
Yes, and their client.
All right, let's give Mr. GODEJOHN.
Now remember what she looked like when we saw that clip of her in the wheelchair with her mom. the defendant, her boyfriend, Nicholas, who actually wielded the weapon.
State versus GODEJOHN matter. Parties are all present. Jury's not present. So I understand that you wish to call Ms. Blanchard as your first witness.
Yes, Judge, we would call GYPSY Blanchard to witness stand.
All right, and as agreed, you're going to have her seated
Yes, before the jury.
before the jury. And we'll go through, hopefully we'll be able to do it without a recess, but if not, we'll take a recess, but they won't see her walking because she's in restraints.
Okay, so that this is interesting. They're going to let her sit down in the witness stand so that the jury will not see that she has restraints on. That's interesting.
So we give Ms. Blanchard in. And her attorney is here. So we note that. Yeah, Ms. Blanchard, if you just have her come out here. Ms. Blanchard, so let me see over here. Yeah, be careful on that step. And have a seat. There's water there for you. Isn't there? There's a fresh bottle of water for you if you need it. All right. Get settled in. Are we ready for the jury?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Gonna bring the jury in.
If you're just tuning in, we are playing the original trial testimony from 2018, where GYPSY Rose Blanchard testified at the trial of her then boyfriend, Nicholas GODEJOHN, who was on trial for the first-degree murder of GYPSY Rose Blanchard's mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, who had been accused of and most likely had Munchausen by proxy, causing GYPSY Rose to be imprisoned in her home, confined to a wheelchair, undergo many, many surgeries, and take many medications that she did not need, causing her to be ill physically and mentally for many, many years, leading to the course of these events.
All rise. Please be seated.
Ignore the closed captions. Please PC. He's saying please be seated. They're wrong. A lot of it is wrong, but just, we're going to do the best we can, and I'm going to keep it on because sometimes people have a hard time hearing it. Don't take it word for word, but we'll do the best we can with this.
Mr. Perry, do you have a witness you wish to call?
GYPSY Blanchard, Judge.
Ms. Blanchard, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in the cause now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Sir?
Please tell us your name.
GYPSY Blanchard.
What do you go by?
GYPSY.
Okay. GYPSY, could you speak up just a bit? I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Much better?
That chair won't move. You can hold the microphone if you want to take it out. Just lift it straight out. There you go.
Is that better?
That's much better. How old are you?
27.
Where were you born?
Braceland, Louisiana.
Where were you living in the summer of 2015, in June of 2015?
Springfield, Missouri.
Do you remember the address?
I don't remember now. I'm sorry.
How long had you lived at that address in Springfield?
About 7 years.
And prior to that, where did you live?
Slidell, Louisiana.
And when did you move to Missouri?
In 2005.
And who did you move to Missouri with?
My mother,
And what was her name?
Dee Dee Blanchard.
Did she go by any other names?
Dee Dee.
So if I say Dee Dee, you'll know who I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Do you know a Nicholas GODEJOHN?
Yes, sir.
And when did you meet Nicholas GODEJOHN?
In October of 2012.
How did you meet him?
On an online Christian dating website.
Do you remember the name of that site?
ChristianDatingForFree.com.
How old were you when you met?
About 21.
In June of 2015, what did you consider your relationship to Nick to be? What kind of relationship?
We were boyfriend, girlfriend.
And when did you become boyfriend and girlfriend?
In October of 2012.
When did you first meet Nick in person?
March of 2015.
So between October of 2012 and March of 2015, you hadn't actually met Nick in person?
That is correct.
What type of relationship did you have during that period of time?
Online relationship.
And by online, what do you mean?
Strictly communicating through Facebook.
Any other ways other than Facebook?
Instant text messaging, emails.
All by way of computer and cell phones?
Yes, sir.
Did you send videos to each other?
Yes, sir.
Prior to March of 15, when you indicated you met Mr. GODEJOHN for the first time in person, had your mother met him?
No, sir.
Did she know he existed?
No, sir.
Why is it she didn't know?
Because it was a secret relationship and my mother would never allow me to have a boyfriend.
Why not?
Because she controlled every aspect of my life.
Did you and Nick ever talk about the fact that you were not allowed to date?
Yes.
How many times do you think?
I don't remember.
Did you and your mother ever have any discussions about whether you were ever going to be able to date?
Yes, sir.
Did you and Nick talk about that?
We may have.
What did your mother say about your ability to date going forward?
She said that it would never happen, that she would never allow it.
What about marriage? Did you and Nick ever talk about marriage?
Yes.
Did you and your mother ever discuss whether or not you'd be able to get married someday?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
She said that she wouldn't allow it.
In June of 2015, were you in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did Nick know you were in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Why were you in a wheelchair in June of 2015?
Because my mother forced me to be in one.
Do you know why you were forced to be in a wheelchair?
No, sir. She just forced me to be in one.
And how long had you been in a wheelchair as of June of 2015?
Since probably I was about 8 years old.
Was there a time between when you first were put in a wheelchair and June of 2015 that you figured out that you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
When was that?
I always knew that I didn't need the wheelchair.
And how did you know that?
Because I could walk.
Did you and your mother obtain any kind of advantage by you being in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
What kind of advantage did you obtain?
Financial, attention, charity.
Financially mean money.
Yes, sir.
Did you obtain money as a result of you being in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
How did that work out? How did that happen?
Judge, I'm going to object to the relevance of that. There's been no connection that the defendant knew any of this.
Well, I'm assuming, Mr. Perry, you're going to tie this up.
Well, right now. Did you and Nick ever talk about the fact that you didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did you ever talk to him about why you were required to be in a wheelchair?
Yes.
I'll overrule the objection.
Could you tell the jury why it is that you obtained money as a result of being in a wheelchair?
Because people felt sorry for me.
And they would do what?
And Judge, I'm just gonna get the general relevance at this point.
I'll allow it for the time being. You may answer, ma'am.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Asked you why you attained an advantage for being in a wheelchair. You said people gave you money. And I think my next question was, why did they give you money?
Because they felt sorry for me. They believed the lie. They believed the fraud.
When did you tell Nick about the wheelchair? That you being in a wheelchair?
I think maybe a month or so after we met.
When did you tell Nick that you didn't need to be in a wheelchair?
A year into our relationship.
So if your relationship began in October.
Okay, so remember, they had an online relationship for several years, and they never met in person until, let's see, they met in October of 2012 online. They did not even meet in person until March of 2015. So when he says, you know, you didn't tell the guy for a while, I mean, she really didn't have a reason to, because she wasn't seeing him in person. They were just talking over Facebook and Messenger and other text computer type. I don't even know if they FaceTimed back then, but we'll see.
October of 2012, it would have been sometime in 2013 that you first told him that you really didn't need to be in a wheelchair.
That is correct.
Were you ill during this period of time?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell Nick that you were ill or that you had illnesses?
I told him that I had illnesses. Yes, sir.
Did you ever tell him that you really weren't ill?
Yes, sir.
When did you tell him you really weren't ill?
Not killed,
Same
ill.
time that I told him that I didn't need to be in the wheelchair.
What illnesses did you believe you had?
Cancer, muscular dystrophy. I needed glasses. I needed hearing aids. Seizure disorder. And I can't remember what else.
And when did you figure out that you weren't actually sick?
I started to piece things together when I was about 19 years old. Then I didn't understand the full extent of how healthy I was until after I got arrested.
So even at the time, even as of June of 2015, you still believed you had some of the illnesses?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever run away?
Yes, sir.
When did you, and by run away I mean from your mother,
Yes, sir.
when did you run away?
In the spring of 2011.
Did you tell Nick about that?
Yes, sir.
When did you tell Nick about that?
I don't remember the exact time.
Was it before your mother's murder?
Yes.
Did you ever consider running away after that? After you ran away in 2011?
Yes, but I knew that it would end badly.
What happened when you ran? Tell us about running away in 2011.
It was in the middle of the night, and I packed a small bag of stuff, and my mother was asleep, so I left the house, and I met up with one of my friends.
And where did you go?
To first at Mercy Hospital in Springfield, and then to his house.
And at some point, did your mom figure out where you were?
Oh, shoot. I'm curious about that Mercy Hospital. She says she ran away and she went to Mercy Hospital in Springfield. And why did she go to Mercy Hospital, and what happened there? That's really a little bit concerning to me. I'm just going to rewind this a little bit to see where we left off, because let's see, where was that? How far did we get? Any techies in the chat? Okay. Talking about the first time she ran away.
It was in the middle of the night, and I packed a small bag of stuff, and my mother was asleep, so I left the house, and I met up with one of my friends.
And where did you go?
To
What do you mean? You think the closed captions are getting me penalized? Is that what you think? All right, I'm going to turn them off. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Why? Because it's saying stuff, but it's not really saying stuff. It's saying all the wrong stuff. All right, I think you guys can hear it well enough without the closed captions, yeah? Let's try without it.
first at Mercy Hospital in Springfield, and then to his house.
And at some point, did your mom figure out where you were?
Yes, sir.
And when was that?
4 hours later,
What happened when your mother figured out where you were?
she took me back home. She smashed my computer and my cell phone. She chained me to a bed for 2 weeks.
She chained me to a bed for 2 weeks. She said, she chained me to a bed for 2 weeks.
It was in the middle of the night, and
Back a
I
little
packed a small bag of stuff, and my mother was asleep, so I left the house, and I met up with one of my friends.
And where did you go?
To first at Mercy Hospital in Springfield, and then to his house.
And at some point, did your mom figure out where you were?
Yes, sir.
And when was that?
4 hours later,
What happened when your mother figured out where you were?
she took me back home. She smashed my computer and my cell phone. She chained me to a bed for 2 weeks.
Did you ever tell Nick about all that?
Yes.
That's the only time you ran away?
Yes.
Did you receive any other physical abuse as a result of running away other than what you already told the jury?
Yes.
What other abuse?
Hitting, punching, starvation.
Did you tell Nick everything that had happened between you and your mother during the course of your relationship with him?
Most, but not all.
All the stuff we've talked about is stuff you actually did tell him,
Yes.
and stuff he knew as of June of 2015.
Yes.
And when did you tell him these things? All at once or over a period of time?
Over a period of time.
Beginning at what point in the relationship?
He knew since day one that my mother never allowed me to date. But I don't remember exactly when I told him every single little detail that was going on in my home life.
But you did tell him everything you did tell him by the time of June of 2015.
Yes, sir.
I assume since you believed you to be sick, you met regularly with doctors.
Yes, sir.
Did you also meet with social workers? Or do you remember that?
No, sir, I don't remember.
Never met with social workers.
Why didn't you tell your doctors that you didn't really think you needed to be in a wheelchair?
Why didn't you tell your doctors?
That's outside the scope of the knowledge the defendant would have.
Mr. Fair?
Judge, I think it is relevant. It goes to, it really goes to why this whole thing happened. The fact that, and I'm glad to explain it, but I really don't know we should explain it on the record.
Yeah. Can we go back to the
I'm gonna allow it for the time being. Let's not get too far afield here, Mr. Fair.
I like the latitude the
Can you
judge
take
is giving her to
question repeated,
testify.
please?
Yes, please.
If you'd repeat it, Mr.
I
Fair.
would be glad to. Why did you not tell doctors that you knew you could walk or you didn't believe yourself to be ill during the time that you were doing this?
I didn't think that anyone would believe me. I thought they would eventually tell my mom, and that would make my home life even worse for me. I feared her more than I feared anyone else.
We're going to see that in the Ruby Frankie Jody Hildebrandt case too,
Where's your
folks.
father during this time?
Louisiana.
Did you ever talk to your father while you were in Missouri?
It's a complicated answer.
Did you ever speak to him on the phone?
I did, but my mother was always present.
Did you ever tell him what was going on?
No, sir.
Now, earlier you told us you met Nick for the first time in person in March of 2015. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And where did you meet him in person?
A Springfield movie theater.
What movie?
Cinderella.
How is it you were able to meet with Nick in March of 2015?
I paid for his transportation, his lodging to get there.
Why did you pay for it?
I didn't think he'd have enough money.
And you say you met him at the Cinderella movie. And was your mother present?
Yes.
Did you and Nick talk that night?
Yes.
How did that work out?
It didn't go well at all. My mother hated him from the moment they met.
Did you guys watch this movie together?
Yes.
Did your relationship change in any way that day?
Yes.
How?
We got to see each other in person for the first time.
Did it become physical that night?
Yes.
And you know what I mean by physical, don't you?
Yes.
What do I mean?
We had sexual relations
And where?
in the bathroom stall of the men's bathroom.
What was the point of you and Nick meeting up during the Cinderella movie? Were you guys trying to do something?
Yes.
What?
I was trying to introduce him to my mom so my mother would allow me to date.
You said that didn't go well.
No, sir.
Now, where did Nick live?
In Wisconsin with his mother.
Did you and Nick ever talk about any disabilities he may have?
Yes.
What disabilities did you understand him to have?
Asperger's syndrome.
Did you know what that was?
No, sir.
Now, you indicated that you paid for this trip to Missouri by Nick in 2015. What all did you pay for?
I paid for the Greyhound bus ticket. I paid for the hotel and for eating money.
And how did you pay for this? How did you get the money to Nick?
I stole the money from my mother and I sent it to him via the mail.
Gypsy, if you wouldn't mind speaking up just a bit.
Yes.
It's more soft.
Sorry.
I think you said you put it in the mail?
Yes, sir.
In what form was the money?
Cash.
Do you know how much you sent him that time?
I don't know the exact amount. Probably about $800.
And how would you get the money how would you steal the money from your mother?
She kept it in a money pouch.
What were your feelings for Nick in the spring of 2015?
I loved him.
Was there a point in this relationship that you considered yourself, that is you and Nick, to be more than just boyfriend and girlfriend?
Yes.
When was that?
We had plans to marry.
Any other plans for your future at that point?
We planned to have kids. Yes.
Did you do anything to prepare for having children with Nick?
Yes.
What did you do?
I stole baby clothes and things for a child.
And how would you steal baby clothes?
I was in the wheelchair, so I would steal them from Walmart.
And where would your mother be when you did this?
She would have been in a different aisle or a different section of the store.
And was she aware of any of this?
No, sir.
At some point, you decided to kill your mother, is that correct?
Yes.
When was that?
Thoughts of it started a year prior to the murder actually happening.
Whose idea was it to kill your mother?
Mine.
Why did you want to kill your mother?
Because I wanted to be free of her hold on me.
Did you and Nick ever talk about this?
Yes,
Who initially brought up killing your mother?
I did.
Why not just tell somebody rather than kill your mother? Why was that not an option?
I truly didn't believe that nobody would believe me if I told anyone. My mother had legal documents in place saying that I was incompetent, and I thought that meant that if I went to anyone, the police, or told anyone, she would just have them convinced that I was making everything up.
She was brainwashed.
At some point after you initially considered killing your mother, did you ever change your mind?
Yes,
You know when that was?
about 2 weeks before it happened.
Why did you change your mind and decide not to kill her?
I started having doubts, second thoughts.
Did you ever then change your mind back to the initial decision to kill her?
Yes,
Why did you change your mind back to killing her?
my mother and I got into an argument 2 days prior to the murder occurring. And Nick asked me, are we still doing this? Am I still, coming there to do this? Yes or no? And I said yes.
Who talked you into killing your mother?
I did. I talked him into it.
During the time you and Nick were together, did you ever engage in fantasies or role playing or anything like that?
Yes,
Did you have names?
yes.
Tell us about the names you utilized.
Ruby, Candy, Kitty, Bella, Demona.
Why did you have different alter egos?
I made them up because he told me that he had various alter egos. And so I created mine to fit the ones with his.
And who came up with your names?
I did.
And do they each represent a different type of person?
Yes.
Was this real?
It was fantasy.
Who is Demona?
She's a character that I came up with.
And what was the character?
She's half werewolf and half human.
Who is Kitty?
She's like a childlike girl.
Ruby?
She's my evil side.
And what about Candy?
She's more of the slutty side of me.
Did you also have wigs?
Yes,
And why did you have wigs?
to change the different hair colors of the characters, and because I didn't have any hair at the time.
And why did you not have hair?
My mother would shave off my hair and tell people I had cancer.
Her mother would shave off her hair to tell people she had cancer.
Was any of this stuff non-consensual on your part? The personalities?
No,
Now, you mentioned the idea to kill your mother came out about the year before it happened.
yes, sir.
And what was going on in your home life that made you reach the point where you did that or made that decision?
I was growing increasingly desperate to get out of my home life.
Did you tell Nick that?
Yes,
And what was your mom doing that caused you to be more desperate?
things were getting physically and more physically abusive. The hitting was more. The starving was more.
Now, you mentioned you were in a wheelchair. Were you required to act any certain way when you were in a wheelchair?
Yes, sir.
How was that?
She would have me stay very quiet and pretend like I couldn't walk.
Mr. Perry, can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
Can I sit for a second?
So then something happens here,
Break. I don't know if you
and they have to vacate the courtroom. I'm not sure if it was some sort of an alarm going off, but this was the crux of her testimony that talks about the history with her mother. And that's the part that I wanted you to see. If you want to go back and watch the entire trial, you can do that. It's on Law and Crime. Again, this is the trial of her co-defendant, boyfriend at the time, Nicholas GODEJOHN, who she says has Asperger's. It's been said that he was on the spectrum. He does testify during his trial that he has multiple personalities. He was quickly convicted by a jury in 2018, December, and was sentenced in February 2019 for first-degree murder charges, a sentence of life without parole, where he is currently sitting. I'm going to go to the chat for a minute because you guys have a lot to say about this. Dominique, she was severely mentally and physically abused to a level that most of us will never understand by her mothers and doctors. Delaney, when is she getting out? She will be getting out December 28th. On parole, she has served 8.5 years of her 10-year sentence. And after serving 85% of her time, she's eligible for parole. So she did serve her entire term, guys. People are saying she should have had more time. I disagree. She pled guilty. Remember, this was not a jury verdict. She pled guilty in exchange for a more lenient sentence because there was so much evidence against her having planned this and premeditated this. In my opinion, had she gone to a jury with this case, they may have acquitted her based on the severe, extensive level of mental and physical abuse that she suffered since the time she was 3 months old. Just my opinion. Elaine McKenzie, she should not have spent 1 day in prison. She should have been compensated by the state to recover the A she went through. I can't believe she got treated this way. She pled guilty. I'm sure she had a court-appointed attorney, and I'm sure that she was given advice, and maybe she didn't want to risk it. I think she makes a very credible, very sympathetic witness. You can certainly disagree with me on that. I do welcome respectful debate in the comments, as long as we don't attack each other or others in the chat or attack anybody personally. And the reason for not using certain words in the chat, I see a lot of chatter about that. And in the comments is, I don't really care if YouTube demonetizes me for the views on this video. But what happens is when they do that, it shadow bans the video from getting pushed out. So nobody will ever see this. And I think this is a very, very important topic to talk about. I think this is a very important case, especially with what is going on right now with the Take Care of Maya trial and the false allegations of MVP that were levied against Maya's mom, causing her death, is the argument. So it's really the shadow banning that makes me mad. So, I mean, and forget about Facebook. Like if I try and put a link to this stream of mine on Facebook, it completely gets shadow banned and none of my friends will see it. So, Facebook can just bite it because I'm done with them. Judith Lyons, I think he got life because he's, also he had no reason to kill, he wasn't abused. Well, yeah, but if you watch his testimony, and I suggest that you do, go on Law and Crime and watch his testimony. I mean, I think insanity would have been a good defense for him, and maybe he should be in a mental hospital. It's very questionable whether or not he was in his right mind at all. He talks about multiple personalities. He's just, it's very sad. It's a very, very sad case all around. Very sad. Maxie Doodle, wow, Gypsy looks so healthy. Real prison was better for her than her mother's prison. Yeah, so this was, when did I say this was? December of 2018. She was sentenced in 2016. So by this time, she may have been in for 2 years. Yeah, could you imagine? That a state correctional facility was better for her physically than the home that she grew up in. Dominique giving an explanation for what may have happened. Her mother told doctors that all the medical records had been lost in a hurricane so she could lower her age and continue abusing her. Yeah. LETH, autistic man had more empathy for Gypsy Rose than her own mother did, and his moral compass was better than the woman he unalived. I know, isn't that so sad here? And you know, we cover so many cases on this channel about CA and CSA, and I'm a mother of 5, and everybody knows it, and I'm very, very sensitive to these types of cases, and they really, really get to me. And you know, I see something like this, and it's so tragic, and it's who's looking out for the kids? So many of these kids are getting lost in the system. Bama Rose's mother lied and kept going, or she swapped doctors till she found one who listened to her. Yep. Sounds like it. SB says, imagine being used for your first 20 years of life as a medical experiment and extortion. How would you feel when you found out but felt like you had no way out? Yeah. And I think that in a lot of ways, the jury could have found this, right? Justifiable homicide. I feel like she's done her time. Let me know what you think in the comments. And in the chat, sounds like Dee Dee mentored Jody Hildebrandt. Yeah. All of these cases have so many commonalities that it's scary. It's really scary. And I want you guys to all put your DNA on the like button while we're thinking about it. And I was going to pull up, I am going to pull up something from the local news channel announcing that she was being released, because I thought it was an interesting take on that. Oh, also interesting is that Gypsy Rose did get married while she was in prison to a prison pen pal that she somehow met. Maybe is there a prison pen pal program? I guess there is, because a lot of prisoners like Alec Murdoch and the Menendez brothers get a lot of women writing to them in prison. In July of 2022, she got married to a guy named Ryan Scott Anderson, who was her prison pen pal. So that's kind of interesting. Let me see if I can find this. Maybe I have to close it out and then just refresh it. Kate for Big Little Voices, triggers me that there's such a gap between see something and actual victim safety. I agree with you 100%, because we heard her say, I couldn't say anything because then it would be so much worse for me at home. And again, right? We say, see something, say something, but we don't realize what could be happening behind the scenes that we don't know about if we do see something, say something, and then nothing's done. And then the child or children could be in so much more danger than we know. All right, here's the local channel, KOLR 10, Fox 49. Let's play that for you.
It was probably one of the most interesting cases where it takes twisted turns that you wouldn't know that was going to happen.
GYPSY Rose Blanchard will be granted early release for her role in the killing of her mother. The Springfield murder case gained national attention back in 2015 when years of deception and abuse were revealed. Color 10's Carissa Codell is live in Greene County after speaking with Sheriff Jim Arnot.
And GYPSY's parole is expected to begin on December 28th of this year. Now, if you remember back in 2016, GYPSY pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to the minimum of 10 years in prison.
I want to start off with saying things are not always as they appear.
One of Springfield's most infamous criminal cases, the murder of Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard. Dee Dee's daughter, GYPSY, will be released from prison early after 8.5 years behind bars.
But it is such a story of deception and lies and someone that has like fallen through the cracks, the family that's fallen through the cracks.
Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnot believes the deal GYPSY struck with prosecutors was too lenient.
From my perspective, she was the mastermind behind the murder of her mother. If she served the 85.
Wow, Sheriff, talk about having no empathy for victims whatsoever. Wow. Wow. Anybody else think this is kind of a wow moment? And this is new coverage now. We're on the new coverage, which was just posted either today or yesterday. Too lenient.
5%, then it is what it is. She did her time.
It was revealed by GYPSY's attorneys that she was
subjected
subjected to
I need to hear
Jim
that one more
Arnot.
time.
Such a story of deception and lies and someone that has like fallen through the cracks, the family that's fallen through the cracks.
Greene County Sheriff Jim Arnot believes the deal GYPSY struck with prosecutors was too lenient.
From my perspective, she was the mastermind behind the murder of her mother. If she served the 85%, then it is what it is. She did her time.
It was revealed by GYPSY's attorneys that she was subjected to abuse, like being forced to stay in a wheelchair and be on medication for conditions she didn't have.
We also know that she can walk without assistance or a wheelchair, and she can do that very well.
After
I noticed that my cupcake logo was blocking the date, but that was 6/16 of 2015, that statement that he just gave. And now this is from 2005.
For years of abuse fueled by suspected Munchausen by proxy, GYPSY and her boyfriend, Nicholas GODEJOHN, crafted a plan that ended with GODEJOHN stabbing Dee Dee in the back 17 times.
Dee Dee inflicted a lot of this torture on her also, of giving her medications that will make her teeth fall out and all those things that you read. It's a sad case from both sides.
Sheriff Arnot says he has conflicting emotions when it comes to this case.
She was a victim of a lot of things and things that she could not control.
And you can find in-depth investigations through the many stories that we've done on our website, ozarksfirst.com. Just go there and search GYPSY Rose. Reporting live in Greene County, I'm Carissa Codell, Color 10 News.
Okay, was anybody else a little stunned by the sheriff's statement? Anybody? Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to highlight that comment, Olana, but yeah, on the mother's part. Exactly. Let's go back to the chat. Look crazy. And some empathy deficient jury then further inflicted the abuse of prison on her. No, she was not convicted by a jury. That was a plea deal. She pled guilty in exchange for her testimony against Nicholas. And they put him away for life without parole. Thank you, Girl of the Valley, for your super chat. This is heartbreaking. It is. Emma Canty says she's my biggest fan. No, Emma, I'm your biggest fan. SB Mods, thank you for bringing light to this case again and the breaking news. Yeah, I'm glad she's getting out. I hope she can make something of her life. I hope she does write a book, and I hope that she will be an advocate, for other victims. And I think that she will. I have a feeling that she will. I think that she's got a good heart, and I think maybe that's going to be her purpose in life, and let's hope some good can come out of this. SB, Dee Dee lied to Gypsy about her age. Dee Dee kept Gypsy's age always under 18, even though Gypsy was actually of legal age. Dee Dee forged Gypsy's medical documents saying they were ruined in the Hurricane Katrina. That is correct. Liberty Babe, and you obey, you're abused, you comply because you're unable to speak out because you've been silenced. I can see that. And I know a lot of my viewers have been through this. They've been through similar situations, whether it be CA, CSA, DV, they're all survivors. So many of you are survivors, and I hear you and I see you and I read your comments and my heart breaks. So I know. Spirit healing, I use a wheelchair. That is a mind trip alone to be using a wheelchair. Yeah, it is. And she didn't want to be in the wheelchair, and her mother forced her to be in the wheelchair, and she knew she didn't need it. Hello, Kathy 4. I just clicked on you. I'm brand new, but I've been obsessed with this story. Well, welcome. Introduce yourself in the chat. The chat is very friendly here, and they will welcome you with open arms. Maja, excellent point. If we pretend that Beata, and now we're back to the Maya case, Beata Kowalski had MVP, what did she gain in the case of Maya? Exactly. Attention, yes, maybe, but she didn't go ask for money or charity as far as I know. No. And that's why, in my opinion, and we are going to go back to that case and we are going to go over the testimony. And I know I keep saying that, but I'm working on it behind the scenes. And then every day something new starts breaking. Either I go to court and I come into contact with the suspected Long Island serial killer Rex Heuermann, or this happened today. So I want to, and this Maya trial is going to go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. So I'm going to parse it down and I'm going to show the testimony in a way that I think it's going to make most sense. I want to do, we're going to talk about the religious claims and the fact that they tried to keep her from practicing her religion in the hospital. And I want to have all of those witnesses in one block. And then we're going to do some doctor's testimony in another block, I think, because it's going to make more sense in the way that I present it to you to have certain witnesses grouped together instead of the way they're doing it live, because the way they're doing it live is having the witnesses that are available to testify that day. So a lot of times it'll be out of order. There'll be a doctor, there'll be a priest, there'll be, so I want to do it in a way that's going to make most sense for you and for everyone who's watching. Thanks, Yvette. So happy to see your channel growing leaps and bounds. We need more people like you. Thank you. You know why? Because I'm not a cupcake. I am not a cupcake. I have a pink sign over here that you can't read because the font is gold and it doesn't really show up, but it says, you can't make everyone happy. You are not a cupcake. And that's my logo. I'm not a cupcake. I'm not going to make everyone happy. I'm going to tell you what I think, whether you like it or not. And I have opinions. So please don't come onto my channel and say, which somebody said to me recently, really the best law tubers are the ones who are neutral and don't really have an opinion and just state the facts. And, you seem to be too one-sided for this or one-sided for that. I'm not one-sided. I'm going to be on a different side on every case, but I'm not just going to sit here and read documents to you and show you a bunch of clips and read from news articles without giving you my opinion, because what are you here for if it's not my opinion? If you don't want my opinion, go watch some AI narrated photo montage, right? I mean, that's my opinion and I'm sticking to it. Thank you, Duty Ron, for popping in to send me a $20 super chat. Congratulations on hitting 12K. Oh, did it happen? It happened during this feed? Yay. Because I was under 12K when I started this live stream today. So awesome. We just had a little celebration when I hit 10,000 last week and my kids bought me a rainbow cookie cake and it said 10K on it with an exclamation point. And we had a little celebration. So we're getting there. You guys are watching and you're enjoying, and I'm happy for that. So happy for that, and so grateful for you, because without you guys, I don't have a channel and I don't have anybody to talk to. Nobody would be listening to me. Elaine McKenzie, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate you. And also to my moderators who do an amazing job of keeping the chat classy. Let me know what you think. Thumbs up, everyone, says Maxie Doodle, because Melanie is not a cupcake. Thank goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, Cammie, everyone is entitled to their opinion while using respect. Yes. And there is a way to debate respectfully. I don't like the cursey words. I know some people do. I don't personally. So just don't use them in my chat. Don't use them in my comments. And if you come on into my comments and you attack me, like somebody did recently on a Ruby Frankie video where they wrote this long diatribe about how I was just showing fake emotion for Ruby Frankie's children and crocodile tears and just for clicks and likes. And I pinned it to the top of my comments and I clapped back at this person. Like, you don't know me. You don't know my channel. My entire 30-year legal career was spent advocating for survivors of CA and CSA and DV. How dare you tell me that I don't have empathy? And at least 100 of you, my subscribers, came back and supported me in that comment. And that's why I do it. I say, come for me in the comments, come for me in the comments. I'm going to make t-shirts, mugs, whatever, all kinds of merch. I am not a cupcake, and come for me in the comments because it's fine. We're going to have respectful debate. But if you attack me or you attack my peeps, it's not going to end well for you. That's right, Scarlett. Somebody dissing my eyebrows, right? Thank you. On fleek, right? That's what you tell me, that my eyebrows are on fleek. Yeah, somebody actually said the other day, he said, I'm trying to watch your video, but your eyebrows are screaming at me and I just can't handle it. So I have to block the word eyebrow. Right, Donna Marie? Can you believe it? Thank you, Dakota. We will gag them. Karma 67, I like the fact that you evaluate the facts. I might not always agree with you, but I respect the fact that you are open to respectful discussion. Good. This is the first time I'm seeing you in the chat. So it's nice to meet you. It's nice to see you. And sure, I will always try and see both sides of it. Tell me your side. And I'm happy to listen to it. But don't come into the chat and attack anybody. Linda forgot you have watchdogs here. I do. My moderators are the best on YouTube. They will put you in timeout. They will block you. And you don't want that. Nobody wants that. That's right. Bama Rose, Brooke Shields is actually my idol. We're around the same age. I grew up when she was a supermodel when she was like 12 years old. And I've never plucked my eyebrows. I've never shaved my eyebrows because I know so many people who did that back in the day and their eyebrows never grew back. And that's kind of scary. So look, I'd rather have a lot of eyebrows than no eyebrows. Whatevs. Yes, Wendy, Maya breaks my heart too. Her entire family was ruined by that hospital. You attack and we will get you. That's Rochella. She's on it. She's on the button. She is on the button. Let's see. Anybody else have any good questions, comments, concerns before we wrap? My kids want Chipotle for dinner. I can see that. They have to talk to me in the chat because otherwise they're not allowed to come to my door because there's a little thing outside my door that says filming, do not enter. So they have to come into the chat, and actually I get a view out of them and a comment telling me what they want for dinner. Deb, I was just telling my daughter I love Melanie for her spunk and not being afraid to speak out, and then she went off. Love it. That's so funny. Didn't you tell me that you were listening to me in the car the other day and I made you laugh the whole way home? And I love that. Listen, if I can make you laugh, that is amazing. You guys were keeping me laughing the other day after the second time I went live after the alleged Long Island serial killer turned around in court and looked right at me and smiled with his crazy haircut that he just got. Oh, yeah, of course you can get a shout out. Hold on, honey. Dakota, go watch. Thank you. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Can I get a shout out? Always, always, my love. You always get a shout out. Girl of the Valley, thank you for your $5 super chat. Oh, you are gorgeous. You give me Teresa Russell vibe. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So that's where we are with our girl GYPSY Rose Blanchard. She is getting out of prison. She will be out end of December. I don't know why they're waiting. Can't they just say like you can go today? Like, I mean, what do they have to Oh, all right. Judy Ron, you want to come in? Who wants Judy Ron to come in? Let me just send you the link. Judy Ron's going to come in and talk about the parole. Can I text it to you or do I have to email it to you because of your like iPhone situation? I'll email it to you. I guess people are having some questions in the chat about the parole. Okay, you should have it. Come on in. The water's warm. All right, so we'll wait for wait a few minutes for Duty Ron. Thank you, Observation Station. Hey, my eyebrows are gorgeous. Thank you. And if you want to know the product that I use by Anastasia, it's in my Amazon store, which there's a link to, because I was getting a lot of messages. People were sending me messages all the time, like, "Oh, what do you know? What makeup do you use? What skincare do you use? Whatever do you use?" And so I just made like a little Amazon list, and I put the link below. Jay Smith says the sheriff redeemed himself in his later statement. He's allowed his opinion. He is. I just thought he was a little unnecessarily harsh, like now, like to say that now that he didn't think that she received a harsh enough sentence. Like maybe the time for that would have been when she took the plea deal, 8.5 years ago. It's like she did her 85% of her time. Maybe there was a time and a place for that. And maybe now wasn't the time, in my humble opinion. Yeah. All right, Ron, are you coming? Sometimes he does that, and then he's it was like a minute after you texted me. I sent you the link. So did you get it? Thank you, one of a kind. I'm here because it's classy. We try and be classy. That's the thing. Oh, that's why they don't let her out today. They have to find her housing and a job, etc. Yeah, maybe she had nowhere to go, right? Maybe she had nowhere to go. Wonder if she can't go with her dad. That would be nice if she could go with her dad. Hudson's opinion on the sheriff. There's no redemption for that level of victim blaming. Yeah. I just found it to be in poor taste. That's my opinion. Yes, Anastasia of Beverly Hills is great eyebrow products. Yeah. And if you live in California, they can do your brows right at the Nordstrom store. You can make an appointment and they have the girls will do your eyebrows right there. At the Nordstrom store. Oh, we're back on the eyebrows now. Your daughter does microblading. I've never done that. I don't know. That kind of scares me. Is that like tattooing or is that like he's got to restart his computer? Usually Ron is so much more technologically advanced than I am. So I'm surprised. I love Dee Dee Ron, even if his mods block me for disagreeing with Ed. Uh-oh, you got in trouble? It must have been pretty bad because he's a little more lax than I am with the comments. So we'll see. I don't know. Does Joe Canty want to come on? Liz, Melanie's channel in this chat is like therapy. Thank you. Good. I know. It's kind of like therapy for me too. It is. That is interesting. Yeah, Kelly. Did I hear that Mormon Stories podcast had a restraining order put out? And I had to remove the male victim of Jody's show. I don't know what you mean. You mean he had to take down his show with the male victim on it? Usually I don't like people like, redirecting to other channels, but I do like John Dehlin a lot. And he did allow me to use portions of Jesse's interview on my channel when we did a deep dive into that. Jessie Hildebrandt is the niece of Jody Hildebrandt. So I like him a lot. I did not hear that, but I'll look into that. Okay. Here comes Duty Ron. You in?
Yeah. Hey.
Hello.
Thank you for being patient. I had to restart my computer. I had an update and I was like, darn it. So I had Chipotle tonight too. Is that how you say it? Chipotle?
Yeah, that's funny.
So my youngest, he's been a little bit under the weather, and I gave him the option because we were all reined in here on Long Island, right? The 5 boroughs got obliterated with rain. So
did you see the video of the subways, of the water pouring into the subway stations?
It reminded me of Superstorm Sandy when we saw that happen last in 2012, right?
Crazy.
So crazy. But hi to everybody in the chat. Thank you for waiting for me to come. When I heard you speaking about this, I was like, wait a minute, she's getting out on parole. I worked in parole for almost 5-6 years. So I worked with the New York State Parole Task Force. And what we did is monitor released parolees. And she's going to be a felony released parolee because she, pled.
Yep, guilty to second-degree murder.
Right.
In Missouri.
So she didn't have a trial because she pled guilty immediately. And then the judge gave her the sentence. And I don't know much about the case, but again, I put a comment in the chat, I was appalled by that sheriff's comment because it was so insensitive. This is a very twisted and convoluted case involving a lot of mind games and manipulation, right? Manipulation. So I cringed, but I also put something in your chat that, not all police officers and detectives and sheriffs have that same attitude. So
no. Well, how about yesterday, the press conference that we covered on the West sentencing?
Yeah.
Law enforcement that spoke out, 2 chiefs of police spoke out at that sentencing, both of them very, very close, if not in tears.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about parole. So when an individual signs the conditions of release, it's usually a very thick document, and it basically signs away all their rights. They could be checked at any time by the parole officers, male and female, come to their residence. They are not allowed to consume any alcohol or partake in anything obviously illegal. If they are caught in violation of the conditional release of parole, not only do they go back for the time that they were released early, but they also get a parole violation charge, which is usually about a 5-year additional sentence.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes it's almost 10 years, depending on what the person obviously is being paroled on from the charge. So it varies, but 5 additional years for violating parole, and it could be just by being out past a specific time.
Really?
Yeah.
So you have a curfew when you come out on parole too?
They sign away all of their, what we would, consider our constitutional rights. They cannot partake in consumption of alcohol or drugs, and their room, wherever they're residing, their room or their entire home, if they live in a private house, is subject to search when the parole officers come, and they don't even have to announce it. I used to go with parole on specific days, and we would go out 4:30 in the morning and knock on the doors and come in.
Really unannounced.
Yeah, wake people up and start searching their room to see if there's any paraphernalia or drugs.
That's how long does the parole generally last for?
The whole entire time that they're released on parole. So what her conditions will be, I don't know.
Yeah,
but let's say, you're on parole for the next 10 years, or I don't know what her sentence was.
So her original sentence was 10 years. And she pled guilty to second-degree murder. It was 10 years, and she served 85% of that, or 8.5. And then they just announced today or last night that she was getting out on parole. They didn't say how long that was going to be.
The parole could last for a specific term, beyond the time that she got out early, the 85%.
So like a year and a half would make it to 10 years, right? So it could be longer than that even.
Yeah, they usually like to keep them on parole for a period of time after the time would have been served. I like the chat. I can't highlight it, so I don't have.
I know. Oh, I have to give you some permissions.
I don't know how. So, but it's okay. Somebody said, I want cupcakes and Chipotle now. Pooh Busters Day. So congratulations on hitting 12,000 subscribers.
Thank you so much.
That's great, Melody. I'm so happy for you, and your growth is my growth, and vice versa. So we share the same. We share the same subscribers and friends. So it's really great. But yeah, if there's any questions in the chat as it pertains to parole, I mean, I think I pretty much covered it.
Let's see.
I like that I'm right under the sign that I'm not a cupcake.
I know. It says see that? I know.
You can switch us.
I don't know how to do that. Do you?
Take it and drag
go
it.
like this. There we go.
But look, I'll just tell you, you put your cursor on mine, you left click it, and then you could drag it right over to where you are. So, and that's how you change it. Yeah, there you go. You learned something new today.
You teach me everything about YouTube, including, as I was explaining to people before, that if we say certain things in the chat or in the comments, we could get shadow banned, which is the worst part of the demonetization. I don't care about the 50 cents they're going to pay me on the views. It's them not pushing the video out. A lot of people didn't believe that. They're like, that's ridiculous. When did they start that? I'm like, no, it's real.
It's a fact. It happens to me all the time because I'm not as careful as you are, as you see, because my channel is just a little bit bigger. So, but even along the way, I always would say whatever I had to say, and I always just was like, screw you, YouTube. And I paid the price for it because most of my shows weren't monetized. You still would see ads on them, and that's the funny part. They'll tell you that your show is not advertiser friendly, but then when your friends go on it that are watching it, they're like, how come I had to watch 3 ads? And I'm like, well, I'm not getting paid for that. YouTube is getting paid for it. So you do get shadow banned in the sense where they throttle. The only people that get to see your videos are your subscribers, and that's it. So
yeah. There's a question for you.
Do they go back to prison for violating parole? Absolutely. I have taken more than I'd like to tell you released parolees. And granted, these were the worst of the worst that we were on. I worked in the top unit, which is the targeted offender program. So in the targeted offender program, it was really like all violent felonies and rapists and the worst of the worst. But your conditional release on parole, if you sign that document, and if you violate, as I said before, any of those pieces of that parole agreement, and it could be something as not being home at 9 o'clock. If your curfew is at 9 p.m. and you're home at 9:05 or 9:01, and the parole officer is there, you're violated. And you don't
go back to jail.
You don't even get a hearing. You don't
do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go back to jail.
Boom! They slap the cuffs on you and they bring you right back, and they sign all the paperwork. Because I brought many back to Rikers Island, and then you go back upstate to your state correctional facility.
Wow. Purple Heart says that Mel and Duty Run make the best lives.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, so here I feel like what we're doing is providing such great insight, like from the attorney's perspective and from me, from the police and the detectives' perspective. It's what you guys make the great lives, because without you guys there, we got nothing, right? I say this all the time. So yeah, it's you guys that make the lives great, because you're interacting with us, you're asking questions in the chat, and without a sharp audience like what you guys are, we got nothing. We're just gonna be sitting here talking. Like you said before I came on, you're like, I'm not just gonna read you news articles and give you what the popular opinion is. I'm gonna give you what my opinion is.
That's right. That's right.
You don't like
who wants that? How boring is that?
And there's plenty of other channels. Turn the channel. You know what I mean? Like go
right.
So yeah, it's awesome. Hey, a lot of people. I'm looking at this. SB, Kel, Dominique, Cheryl F, all these guys. Duty Run, do you think Gypsy got too harsh of a punishment for what her mother put her through? Again, for face value and for you guys to know, I'm just looking at this from what I just heard here tonight. And I had an earbud in listening to a little bit before I came on and suggested that I told Melanie to come on. So I didn't hear the whole case, but really from what I gather is that, yeah, this is a sad, sorry case, because her mom seemed to have created this ruse with her, with shaving her head, that she's got cancer and she's wheelchair bound. But, you know, there's going to be the other side that argues along that, like, why didn't she speak up about it? And I think maybe she had, or tried to, or was, you know,
she was afraid to.
She was afraid. Yeah.
Yeah, she was afraid. I mean, her mother lied to her about everything. And then eventually she convinced, allegedly, her boyfriend to do the unaliving of her mother. And she admitted to it, and she pled guilty, and she took the deal.
Should have given her therapy, like sent her to like intensive
I wish they did.
therapy where she's in, like, where she can't leave, like court mandated. You know how they do that with the domestic violence and with drug court. He probably, a judge could have made a decision to remand her to intensive psychotherapy or whatever it would be appropriate. But that's not what happened. And you know, Melanie, the courts sometimes are not, you know, they go by the book. And if you plead guilty to second-degree murder, arguably she served 8 years for that. So that's
8.5, and they let her go to school while she was in there, and she had a job. So hopefully she got some skills. Ed says
she got married.
Yeah, she got married. Ed says we don't know. She might get unconditional parole or a mini.
She's not going to get unconditional because of the charges that she was in there for. Second-degree murder.
Yeah.
Conditional releases are violent felonies where it involves a shooting and somebody survives, where you have a serious physical injury. You know, some of the offenses where it involves drug induced, or, you know, mental health issues come into play, and a crime is committed therein. So I don't see a condition. Duty Ron, I've heard that there are more victims likely, Gypsy, in prisons. I don't know. I don't like
victims of Munchausen's by proxy. I don't, you know, or victims of CA or CSA, or, you know, who wind up, you know, like the Menendez brothers have been sitting in jail for 30 years, you know, and I talk about this all the time. I keep meaning to do a show about this. I think those guys have been in there too long. I mean, they were tried for the unaliving of their parents, but during the first trials, there was all this evidence let in about the fact that the father had, you know, repeatedly essayed one of the boys or both of the boys. There was a mistrial. Then during the second trial, none of that evidence was allowed in. They were both convicted, and they've been sitting there for 30 years. And since then, one of the members of the boy band Menudo has come out and said their father did the same exact thing to him. So it's bolstering their claims, and Mark Garagos is all over it. And I hope that something happens for Eric and Lyle Menendez soon. Sparky, thank you for the $5 super chat. I love watching the growth of your channel. You're intelligent, outspoken, and a class act. I'm here for it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Duty Ron taught me everything I know. Let me guest host with him so many times.
Yeah, but you know what? You took the bull by the horns, and you really ran with it. So you could, I could direct you all I can, and you really did it yourself. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you.
And this is not for everybody. This is not an easy thing to do. And Melanie can tell you, it takes tons of hours of research, tons of time with putting titles together and putting descriptions and giving, giving good, valid information. You can't just talk about these things without doing some research.
Oh yeah.
Like,
hours and hours.
Right. When I would get assigned a case, I would work it up, and I would do all of my, searches and background checks and computer checks and everything. This is the same concept here,
Yeah, it's a volunteer position, basically.
Yeah. It's a thankless job.
Well, we have so many nice subscribers that write really nice messages. Wendy says, I feel bad for the boyfriend too. He has autism, and I think that counts as a mitigating factor. He needs punishment too, but I believe that he should get out and receive treatment. Yeah, unfortunately, a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder, and the judge sentenced him to life without possibility of parole. But go back and watch his testimony, guys. I found a lot of mitigating factors too, or even an insanity defense, but it was not, it wasn't pursued. So that's where we are. Oh, thank you, Thunder Horse, for contributing to Scarlett's Chipotle Fund. We appreciate you so. Thank you so much. All right, run.
You and the fam haven't had dinner yet?
Oh no, what time is it? 7:45. What, we don't do the early bird special. Now I'm gonna have to drive in the flood to go to Chipotle, but it's all right, because I'm a giver.
I have a suggestion.
Whatever the kids want.
I got a suggestion. Uber Eats?
Yeah. I'm gonna pay an extra $40 for delivery.
I'll send you a super chat.
It's fast faster for me to go get it. Really, I don't mind.
I got you.
All right. Anything else? You see anything else you want to address here?
I'm just looking at the chat. Everyone's being super great. All these are familiar faces, but then there's a lot of new faces. So all of you new people here on Melanie's channel, welcome.
Go subscribe to Duty Ron's channel. It's at Duty Ron. Are you going to do something tonight on that other case that we were talking about earlier?
My wife's not feeling good, so I'm just going to hang with her. She's like feeling like she's getting like flu symptoms. So we did the COVID check already. She's good, thank God.
Good.
But
Because it was bad.
I'm just going to hang with the missus. I just told her I'm going to run down here quick. So she just jumped in the shower. So we're going to hang out, watch a movie, and chill out. So tonight we get the night off.
All right. So you take the night off. Let's say goodbye to everybody. Thank you guys for showing up tonight and listening to me talk about this case, which I always found very interesting from the very beginning of this case. And yes, go Bob.
Hey, I want to answer a question. Ed C in the chat said, "Hey, wait, Duty Ron, what precinct did you work out of?" So I worked on patrol I came out of the police academy in 1991. I worked in housing. I was assigned to housing PSA 2, which encompasses the 7-3, 7-5, 7-7, 6-7, 6-9, a whole bunch of others. I think the 8-1, 7. Yeah. So I primarily worked in the 7-3 and the 7-5, which is Brownsville and East New York, Brooklyn. And then I went to that parole task force. I worked in Brooklyn North in that parole task force for about 4 years or so. And then I went to fugitive enforcement. I worked at a fugitive. So
everybody's sending healing vibes all the way from Ireland for Mrs. Duty Ron. So hopefully she will feel all those Duty Ron, all those good vibes. I mean, healing vibes. Oh, Duty Ron going to do a Netflix and chill.
Pretty much. That sums it up right there.
All right. Well, I'm sure you'll see both of us at least sometime over this weekend. Right, guys? And go follow Duty Ron if you don't already. I'm sure that 90% of you at least already do. But if you don't, go over there because he gave me my start. And you guys have a great weekend, but I'm sure we're going to be back. So we're going to see you again real soon. Any final thoughts?
Hey, I hope GYPSY gets out and has a successful conditional release and can somehow get her life back together and integrate into society and be a productive law-abiding citizen. I know that what she did was probably a huge she's looking back at it and saying what a huge mistake it was. And she had so much time, eight plus years to sit and think about it. So that's about it. I wish nothing but the best for.
Yeah. I think sadly, she probably thought she didn't have any other way out.
Yeah.
Which is the same way I feel about Beata Kowalski. She didn't think that her daughter had any other way out of state custody other than doing to herself what she did to herself. So it's very, very sad. These cases are so sad. How do we do this all the time? Can we do a comedy show next time?
The videos of seeing her in a wheelchair and her mom sitting there like giddy and everything. Like I watched a couple of quick videos while I was waiting for my computer to boot up. So I had
doing your research.
Yeah, like quick. I was just like doing a cram session and I was like looking at that and it actually made me sick to my stomach to see that, because to know that the mom was having her put on that face and shaving her head and doing that kind of stuff to a young girl is just so humiliating, and it's
well,
just,
she thought she had a lot of those problems. The only thing she didn't know, the only thing she knew is that she didn't really need the wheelchair, but she thought she had muscular dystrophy and leukemia and all these other horrible things that her mother thrust upon her to get the money from Make-A-Wish and the Habitat for Humanity house and all of that other nonsense. So
yeah, wow.
Babies for bucks, Ron. Babies for bucks. We've seen it before.
Yep. Sincere and classic.
I know. Very sad.
Yeah. Thanks, Mel. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. All right, everybody. Peace out. We'll see you again real soon. Good night, everyone.
Bye.